Hello, you're watching News9 Live. A family of 6 from Vijayawada took a journey from Hyderabad to Bengaluru yesterday amidst rain and hailstorm. They were looking forward to exploring the IT hub of India, what we showcase to the world, which is Bengaluru. What followed thereafter was a storm in their own lives, which they shall never forget all their lives. 22-year-old Banu Rekha, a techie working with Infosys, drowned in her car as the vehicle was stuck in KR Circle underpass, which is a short distance from Vidhana Saudha. The fire and emergency services saved 5 family members, but alas, Banu Rekha's life could not be saved. Newly appointed Chief Minister Siddaramaiah announced a compensation package, of course.
ಅವಳು ಸತ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅವಳಿಗೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರದಿಂದ ಒಂದು 5 ಲಕ್ಷ ರೂಪಾಯಿನ ಪರಿಹಾರ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಾನು ರೇಖಾ ಅವರು ಬಾಕಿಯವರೆಲ್ಲ ಬದುಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೇನು ಇಂಜುರಿ ಏನೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತದೆ.
Not to be left behind, the BJP jumped into the unfortunate incident and Amit Malviya tweeted about it. And several people blamed the driver who took the risk of going through the underpass, the barricade of which had collapsed. But you know what? All this is naturally an emotional reaction. A young woman died, and because of gross negligence by civic authorities, every time Bengaluru rains, it's a deluge, and the killer roads claim lives in seconds. There is, of course, immense anger amongst the people of Bengaluru who are sick and tired of politicians just making empty promises.
In a city like Bangalore, where the world looks up, it is so devastating and difficult to know that people have died because of the infrastructural issues. So we expect from the new government with so many promises to deliver something, and probably like in a city like Bangalore, the infrastructure is one of the main things, and the traffic management along with it has a big role to play. So what we request right now from as a Bangalore citizen is better deliverance in the infrastructure of Bangalore, and BBMP should be responsible for whatever incident that has happened yesterday.
And also many prominent voices from Bengaluru also spoke about the unfortunate incident.
ಒಂದು ವಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಕೆಲಸಗಳು ಯಾವ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಲ್ಲಿ, ಬರೀ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಆಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಹೊಸ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಹೊಸ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೇವ್ರ ದಯೆಯಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಇವಾಗಿಂದ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಆಗೋಗಿದೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು, ಟೋಲ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಫ್ಯೂಲ್ ರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಈಗ ಇದು ಪ್ರಾಮಿಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಲೇಡೀಸ್ಗೆ ಬಸ್ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಫ್ರೀ ಆಗೋಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ, ಅದು ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಗಳು ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಬಂದರೆ ತುಂಬ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ.
ಅಂಡರ್ಪಾಸ್ಗಳು ಸುಮಾರು 18 ಅಂಡರ್ಪಾಸ್ಗಳು ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಇದೆ. ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಕೂಡ ಹುಬ್ಳಿ ಧಾರವಾಡ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಪಾಸ್ ನನಗೆ ಗಮನಿಸಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಬಾಟಲ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಒಂದು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ತರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಒಂದೇ ದಿನದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದು ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಆಗದೆ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಜೀವನ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರದ್ದು ಕಾಪಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ದು ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ.
There are heavy rains and there will be water clogging under the underpass and all. But I don't remember any death happening. That means there is a mishandling of the whole thing, and the particular drivers have not taken precaution, and it could have been avoided, and timely action by the BBMP could have saved the life. There is some lapses that has to be really looked into, and see that minimum this kind of a big loss doesn't happen. Second thing is, of course, the seasonally maintaining the whole drainage system should have been done earlier. The BBMP, there was a warning of rain earlier by weather department. They could have taken precaution. At least now, on war footing, they have to do. And first thing is they had to clear all the trees which have fell all over the city.
As a youth of Karnataka and a citizen of Bengaluru city, what concerns me is the waterlogging and flood situation here in my city of Bengaluru. Unfortunately, we lost a life. Therefore, I pleaded to the able government of Sri Siddaramaiah ji as a Chief Minister and the newly inducted Bengaluru Urban Development Minister Sri Dinesh Gundu Rao ji to kindly do the needful immediately. I truly believe that Bengaluru over the years has suffered due to the non-elections of the Bruhad Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike. Therefore, the need of the hour is to have the best of councillors, efficient people in the government so that we can salvage this situation. Bengaluru is seen as the Silicon Valley of the East, the Silicon capital of India. Therefore, much greater, larger measures need to be taken immediately. A humble request as a Bangalorean to please do the needful. I've always believed with great power comes great responsibility. It is time for the Congress government to be responsible and do the needful.
What you see behind us, Bengaluru drowns, is connected with this very important question that we are asking today. What? We are not saying who or why. That's a given. But what killed Bhanu Rekha? That is the most important question. Let's try and figure out, although a death can never be answered. Joining me in the studio is my colleague Burgess Abraham, of course, and also other guests are joining me. Katyayani Chamaraj, who is Executive Trustee, Civic Bangalore, Sandeep Aniruddhan, convener of Citizens Agenda for Bengaluru, and Wajiullah, my colleague, who is joining us from Bengaluru. We shall be joined by yet another guest, but in a bit. I'm first going across to Wajiullah. Wajiullah, you know, it broke one's heart, and this is not just a Bangalore story, because we saw the very, very grand swearing in and everything that went along, but then Sunday was a very sad Sunday. For all the viewers, if you can just take us through what happened in that KR underpass, as it were, Vaji.
Well, indeed, so that is such an unfortunate incident, an incident that nobody had fathomed about. At around 3, 4, it started raining heavily in Bengaluru, and it was all of a sudden nobody had expected rains. It was quite hot till the afternoon, and then it started raining incandescently. And after that, various spots across Bengaluru started flooding. There was waterlogging. There was no place for the water to seep in through these footpaths, and concretization that we've seen around the city. At KR Circle, the underpass that was recently made, that flooded very much, and it was up to 8 to 10 feet is what I've been told. That the water was logging. You could see that the car also was floating. If you could show those visuals to our viewers, though they are very horrific images, but those images clearly give you an idea how deeply the car was submerged. And before that, the driver, there were barricades, is what the police officers are justifying, that there were barricades placed, but those barricades in the windy rains and everything were not there at their place, and there was no proper security or no proper alertness that was put across by police at that spot. The vehicle driver of the vehicle decided that he could try his luck and zoom past that underpass somehow or the other, and he tried to go ahead despite the fact that there was water clogging there. And in the midst of that, the car got stuck there, and close to 7 to 8 people were stuck inside, out of which they tried to rescue everybody except one, and the 22-year-old techie lost her life because of this. Now, the family believes that she was alive when she was taken to the hospital, while the hospital authorities say that she died while she was brought to the hospital. Now, the family is alleged medical negligence, and they've also filed a complaint with the BBMP. The driver of that vehicle has also been arrested. Now, these are the developments with regards to that particular incident. But apart from that, we've had close to two deaths in Bengaluru and seven across the state because of the rains that happened yesterday. And mind you, these are pre-monsoon showers. Monsoon is yet to arrive. So if this is the situation right now, then so that you can imagine what is Bangalore going to face in the coming days.
Vajula, I just want to know, there are a lot of questions. I mean, did the emergency services take a very long time to arrive? We can see rescue operations on the screen right now. Was there any delay, Vajula?
Well, police officers were on the spot. There were a few of them on the spot. There were a lot of rescue workers. From what we've been told, in the next 15 minutes, the rescue team had arrived. But when it rains in Bengaluru, then you automatically realize that most of the places are waterlogged, and there could have been a delay in reaching the fire services, but they managed to rescue close to 6 people. But this one particular lady, it was very unfortunate of her that she couldn't survive. But as far as we've been told, that the rescue workers tried to reach as fast as possible from wherever they were.
Look at that water, all the viewers, I just want to, look at that water. I mean, anyone can drown, and unfortunately, the car that Bhanureka was traveling in drowned, submerged in this water. This is enough. So, what does it mean? There was water logging. Apparently, in KR Pass, the barricade had collapsed. Again, weak structure and also rain made it worse. So, that's the visual that's coming to you. That is the horror of this Silicon Valley of India, the IT hub, which we showcase to the world. We keep talking about it year after year, but nothing happens. I mean, the politicians can keep blaming each other, but this is the truth. Varghese, we've done many stories on this, we have spoken about it time and time and again. Remember that young girl whose scooty went into, one pothole. Then there was this elderly man who used to sell jewelry on the pavement. Even his scooty went inside, and now Bhanureka. There is a systemic failure, Varghese. Would you agree? This happens every time there is rain in Bengaluru.
Well, this is a classical example of how a city's urban development has gone completely wrong. Not going by the scientific process that a town planning person should have in fact carried out, unbridled development and then made to fix infrastructure projects. This KR Circle situation is that made to fix infrastructure projects. And one of the things about underpasses is that, Vajiola also will agree with me, is that there have been reportedly several underpasses, and when there is a heavy when heavy rains lash Bengaluru, most of these underpasses are completely flooded. And the levels at which these floods happen, you have buses being stuck on till its roof, you have in this case the car till its roof, and there are people who have lost their lives. And over and again, there have been experts who have been saying that look into the drainage system of the city. And here it is corruption that is in fact creating trouble. This made too easy system of trying to in fact have an underpass in an area where there is a traffic congestion to immediately solve the issue. They don't even look at the gradient of the land. And water, Sudha, both of us know that from our elementary school that what they teach us, it finds its own level.
Yes, absolutely.
Without that basic knowledge, these people are designing all these infrastructure projects in the city.
No, but that is the question, Varghese. Today, that's the question we are asking. What killed Bhanureka? Varghese says systemic failure. I mean, there is just, they are so blasé about this civic apathy that year after year, one Bhanureka, last year there was some other Bhanureka, then there was only the gender changes and the age changes. It seems Bengaluru has got used to it. It's like it keeps happening, much like the apathy across the country. Then don't call the city an IT hub. Don't call the city one of the most modern cities in India, Varghese. You are from Bengaluru. You've grown up there. Don't you think it's gone from bad to worse now?
It's become worse to the point that now companies have slowly started shifting their campuses.
Right.
They're going to Coimbatore, they're going to Hyderabad, they're going to Pune. And it looks like everything is hunky-dory as far as the government is concerned, despite IT/BT industry leaders coming and telling them that please do something about the infrastructure in the state. It is, see, this is just one symptom of the failing infrastructure in Bengaluru. There are other symptoms. You have a huge traffic issue. Your entire drainage system has been collapsed, and because of that, groundwater supply has collapsed.
Look at that. Look at Verghese, that is the car. That is the car in which Bhanureka was traveling along with 5 of the family members, a family from Vijayawada. They had started their journey from Hyderabad to Bengaluru. You know, they had come for sightseeing. This is a sight that we are all watching now. That's the car which is submerged. Rescue operations, it were carried out, but the point is, unfortunately, Bhanureka did not make it. 22-year-old techie working with Infosys. This is what happens.
Sudha, have you noticed this? When they're pulling the car in, it is at probably one of the deepest points in that underpass. And just imagine, in an underpass, of course, everybody would have seen, they go from a higher gradient to a lower, and then they go up. So they didn't think that the water is going to rush in that kind of a manner. And if the water will rush into that, there should have had side drains that removes it out.
And of course, one can keep blaming. Congress will blame BJP, BJP will blame the Congress. Say, you just take an oath, what have you done? The point is, many people will ask, what was the BJP doing? Because it really flared up during their tenure. Would you agree?
I agree with it, and also let me add to the fact that the unstable nature of government has contributed to the situation in Bengaluru. You had the JDS coalition first, and they sanctioned a lot of projects, white topping of roads, new infrastructure projects such as flyovers and new highways. Then they also had drain remodeling that was sanctioned. All of them were sanctioned. And then you had the BJP coming in. And the BJP again sanctioned a slew of other projects, but at the same time stalled some of those projects. Let me tell you one project in Bengaluru. It is called the Ijipura-Koramangala flyover. It's been almost 5 to 6 years now. Only the pillars are there. The project is yet to be completed, to the point that someone on Facebook in fact said that this is the Stonehenge of Bengaluru, and it got listed as the Stonehenge of Bengaluru on Google until someone actually pointed it out. Now this is the level at which infrastructure apathy is there. Those pillars are still lying over there. Hopefully with the new government they will in fact sanction more money for it. But those pillars lying over there, it has obstructed the flow of water in Koramangala area. It has become a problematic source when it comes to the passage of water through some of the side drains that are there.
Right.
So Bengaluru's systematic problem are the drains.
Absolutely.
And they are not in fact looking into it. Once the drains are solved, of course you have to go to this, but drains is a big issue. Last monsoon, the entire city was flooded.
Let me now go to the guest, Katyayani Kamaraj, of course, and also Sandeep Aniruddhan, and we are now also joined by Senior Advocate KV Dhananjay. Katyayani, you know, this is a recurring problem. It happens time and time again. Tell me something, BBMP elections have not happened. It's been 2 years and counting. You know, where does people like Bhanureka's parents go for justice? Where do they go? This is such an unfortunate waste of a death, I'd say, Katyayani. Not that every death should happen, but this is really a waste.
Yeah, our heart goes out to their families. But you know, the whole infrastructure of Bangalore is just devastated because there is no master plan, and also because the decentralized governance that should be in place is not there. The elections have not been held for 2.5 years, which is a violation of the constitution. And we have people taking oath, on the constitution when they come to power. And there is blatant violation. Not only is the election not held, but also the master metropolitan planning committee, which should do the planning, is also not in place. And in fact, we have to mention that in the manifesto of the BJP that was announced 4 years ago, they had promised to decentralize and get all the institutions working, the Metropolitan Planning Committee and so on. But none of that has got implemented. And it is a great tragedy that the chief minister is in charge of Bangalore. And you know how much can a chief minister devote attention to drains and potholes in the capital city? Unless they strengthen the decentralized governance machinery, it is not going to, these problems are not going to be solved. So it is high time they held the election and also formed the Metropolitan Planning Committee. And I would just like to mention that the new manifesto of Congress also is saying that they are going to amend the BBMP Act. But in that also, there's hardly any mention of the Metropolitan Planning Committee or of decentralized governance. So, and also we want the mayor's powers to be enhanced. The mayor should be in charge of the entire city. And I hope that this new government will ensure that the chief minister is not in charge of Bengaluru, or that a high level minister is not put in charge of Bengaluru, because we want a strong mayor who has executive powers. And only that will ensure that we have proper planning
Right.
under the Metropolitan Planning Committee.
Right.
And
Sandeep
we also
Aniruddhan,
need to.
yeah, Sandeep, I'll come back to you, Katyani. Sandeep Aniruddhan, this is what we are asking today. You know, what killed Bhanu Rekha? The visuals on our screen right now plays out the context of it. One underpass flooded, car submerges, 5 people escape, Bhanu Rekha, she succumbs, 22-year-old. Sandeep Aniruddhan, we hear a lot of slogans when, you know, when the elections are on, lot of promises when the elections are on. I want to ask you, Katyayani explains it very well, that there has to be kind of, you know, a partnership. The BBMP elections have to take place, and the citizens also have to take care of what goes on. But the point is, I want to talk to you about, you know, what actually killed Bhanu Rekha. It's not this government or that government. Don't you think it is complete? The people of Bengaluru have been left to their own fate, Sandeep Aniruddhan. No one cares. I'm sorry I'm sounding like this.
No, you're right. If you want me to simplify what killed Bhanu Rekha, I can explain it in one word, and that word is lawlessness. You might wonder what that lawlessness is. It's very simple. In the Constitution of India, in the 74th Amendment passed in 1992, that is 3 decades ago, it is very clearly defined how a metropolitan city should be governed. It very clearly says a city should have an autonomous planning authority called the Metropolitan Planning Committee, which Katyani Madam was referring to. It also defines that the city government should be decentralized, devolved, and it should be unified. All services in a city should be unified under the city government. Thirdly, it allows for civic participation at every level, at ward level, at the city level, and at the planning level. Citizens are to be engaged. If you ask me, all governments over the last 30 years have actually violated the constitution of the country. It has committed contempt of our constitution by not implementing this, which is why our city has not had a planning authority for the last 30 years. We have not decentralized and empowered the BBMP. We have not unified the services. We have 15-20 parastatals which are messing up the city. And why do projects like this happen? Like, for instance, the underpasses or flyovers, or even that Stonehenge, which our panelist mentioned in Kormangla. You know that Stonehenge project, which is basically a flyover in Kormangla, is in violation of the comprehensive mobility plan. It is also in violation of the project. Sorry, there is a under the 2031 draft RMP. Even in that, it mentioned there should be a metro or light rail in that corridor. Instead of that,
Saying
the government
what
is
you are
trying
saying,
to build a
Sandeep
flyover.
Aniruddhan,
Yeah.
lawlessness, complete violation of rules, and what the question that we are asking, what killed Bhanu Rekha? And you very succinctly kind of answered that this is lawlessness. It seems as if you can violate anything and get away with it, but who is to take charge? The onus stops where? The bus stop where? Let me bring in senior advocate KV Dhananjay now. You know, Dhananjay, yeah, that's what we are struggling. I think all of us are struggling, whether we are sitting in Delhi, Thiruvananthapuram, or in Bengaluru. What killed Bhanu Rekha? Now, if you look at, I mean, a lot of lawlessness is what Sandeep Aniruddhan says. Now, you know, Katyayani also brought to the fore about, you know, how there should be elections to the BBMP. But the mayor's term, Dhananjay, is only for 1 year. don't you think they have completely weakened the mayor's role and therefore it's now completely toothless as well?
Well, yes, there are several contributing factors, and we've debated everything like this every time there's a death. And why did the chief minister even go to witness the suffering in the hospital? The chief minister at some level is indicating that he has a solution and that he will make things better, but that's just pointless, and that's just a worthless promise. What is it that he would do differently? The chief minister is clueless on what needs to be done. And in a situation like this, of course, visiting the aggrieved ones and then, consoling their family is all just pointless. Nobody cares for anyone's tears now. All that people want is a safe road. And we are talking about, wanting to go to the moon, and yet here we are. This underpass is within a very short distance of the Karnataka Lokayukta. The Karnataka Lokayukta seems to be doing practically nothing except warming his seat, with due respect to him. What is he doing? There is so much of corruption within the infrastructure projects in Bengaluru. What does the Karnataka Lokayukta and the Lokayukta police do? And this place is also within a very short distance of the Vidhan Saudha and the Karnataka High Court. Now, the High Court unfortunately does not do a good job in terms of corruption eradication, and we have judges coming out in public forums and giving eloquent speeches on wanting to do this or that to curb corruption. But the question is, what do they actually do in corruption cases? And the Supreme Court again, the Karnataka netas have so many cases which the Supreme Court stays and puts it in cold storage. The Supreme Court just does not bother to open up those cases and ask itself why it even bothered to grant stays in the first place when the parliament already has made a law where that says you can't grant stay in corruption cases or corruption investigations or trials. So this problem is, of course, a widespread one, and not just one person should take the blame. A good number of them should take the blame here, and some people will take immediate blame, and some people will take a slightly distant blame. I think we perhaps could think of some solutions, not great solutions, but some solutions. The IT/BT sector in Bengaluru is, the moment you have something like this, you will find them coming out in a big way on social media and then lamenting about the state of roads and all that. Most of these companies also spend monies on CSR. You would be surprised to know that a good number of companies in Bengaluru spend CSR on all kinds of distant activities. There are some companies that are spending on CSR for cow welfare in Madhya Pradesh. Why don't they give these monies to the NGOs? There are a good number of NGOs in Bengaluru. These NGOs have one mandate, which is to check
Right.
infrastructure and then to check corruption in infrastructure
Right.
projects. And why don't we give money to these NGOs and then help them to spot corruption and therefore to go to the courts and complain about corruption and then persistently knock on the doors of the courts or the agencies to complain about corruption. And the
Right.
IT and BT companies can take a big, role here, but then they don't seem to
Right.
do this at all.
Right. Vajula, I want to go to you now. Vajula, the thing is that this is not like, put very well by Dhananjay. First of all, he says this is an age-old problem. Number two, no one wants to take responsibility. But Vajula, what was in the 1980s, if you the Ramakrishna Hegde had particularly, invited a lot of environmental specialists to say, come on, give me some solution to the problem, Varghese. This is 1980s. Come 1990s, the IT guys descended on Bengaluru. Many of them built on,
stormwater drains, lakes.
Stormwater drains, lakes. Today also, I mean, the earlier environment minister, now of course we do not know who it's going to be, urban development minister, Bhairati Basavaraj. He had said these IT people, much like what you are saying, what Dhananjay said, that they are responsible. You can keep tweeting about it, you can talk about it on Facebook, but the point is, they are the first ones who are guilty of it. Wajiullah, you've gone around, particularly during elections, speaking to a lot of citizens. Do you think people really care in Bengaluru, or they are more bothered about free electricity, free sari, free rice, all that?
Before I get to what the people of Bengaluru would say, Sudha, to answer your first point, if our viewers, if they just do a small Google search on Google Earth and just start a timeline from 1996 to 2023, they would realize how the city has drastically changed in the last 20, 30 years. In 96, as far as I remember, there was an 86% cover of greenery. That means there was no concretization, the rainfall had place for it to go. There were trees that could consume those water, there was no concretization, footpaths, there were no heavy buildings which were coming in the way of the water being seeped. But if you see the current situation right now, today we have 9 to 10% of green cover left in Bengaluru. Now, this clearly tells you what the IT companies and what the urbanization of Bengaluru or the so-called IT surge that we saw has done to the city. Now, second most important thing is the lack of political will when it comes to Bengaluru. There's a small data that I would want to share with our viewers that the city had 201 lakes, out of which 19 are considered dead, and 161 lakes are a mixed encroachment of water bodies, of civic bodies and public bodies. Basically meaning that government and both public have encroached it. Now, this clearly gives you that 161 lakes have been encroached. Now, if you start encroaching these lakes, I think that is the biggest issue that Bengalurans face, and that is why rainwater clogs in Bengaluru, because these lakes were supposed to be those places where heavy rains, flooding, these water was supposed to seep into those lakes.
Right.
If you don't have those lakes in the city, you are bound to face such situations in Bengaluru. So, lake and the concretization that Bangalore has seen is the biggest reason why we are suffering today.
Right. Katyayani, I want to go back to you. Of course, you know, Katyayani, I want to ask you, we've heard a plethora of reasons. There is apathy, there is lawlessness, there is violation of environmental norms. Verghese, my colleague, also listed a lot of, you know, reasons. We are still not apportioning blame, we are not making it political. I think it will be a shame if we make it only political. I am asking you today, what killed Bhanu Rekha, Katyayani? What do you think killed her?
Yeah, it's a whole lot of systemic issues which everybody has been pointing out. And main thing is that the bodies, the institutions that are meant to hold these engineers or the bureaucrats accountable, or even the elected representatives, they have been made dysfunctional. Huh? So where are the ward committees? Even when the council was there, the ward committees were dysfunctional. And even when the council's term ended, nodal officers were put in place of the councillors, but those meetings were hardly held where citizens could have questioned them and held them accountable. You know, one chief minister sitting in Vidhan Sabha is not going to be able to ensure accountability all across Bangalore. So we have to strengthen and activate the area sabhas where every voter can participate and monitor what is happening in his area, and also hold the councillor accountable in the ward committee meetings. And also, one important thing I would like to bring to your attention is that every ward is supposed to have a ward disaster management cell. And you know, in at the time of the COVID and the lockdown also,
Right.
this ward disaster management cell had not been constituted at all. It was again another violation of the rules. And we had to approach the Chief Justice of High Court, Justice Oka, to see that these ward disaster management cells were set up with citizen
Right,
participation
but then nothing
under
seems
the
to have happened.
leadership of the
Nothing
elected
seems to have
representatives.
happened. You know, that's what, Katyani, I'll come back to you. Verghese, my whole question is that when it comes to citizens' contribution, citizens being proactive in Bengaluru, we have lot of cases. They walk on the streets to see that, you know, the pavements are not encroached upon. Whenever there is a problem in a park, even the recently in Kabban Park, they were all there raising their voices. What Katyayani says, do you think this disaster management, these cells should have been set up, but why have they not been set up?
There are several factors to what Katyani is also saying. Since you asked about the citizens, let me bring to your attention that from 1995 onwards, there was a huge real estate boom in Bengaluru.
Yeah.
All right. And that boom led to first, the unplanned constructions at home, violation of construction, it was vertical growth that led to it. And now, of course, we are all crying horse saying that, if the government has supposed to do, but there was a lot on our part itself that led to the concretization of this entire city. And then when we're talking about these ward level disaster management unit, it was proposed, but then it did not happen because first, there is no manpower on that part of the government to in fact look into it. Secondly, nobody in fact was willing to go for it, because when there is a disaster, when there is a kind of a flooding in an area, waterlogging in an area, there's a lot of money that comes in for as relief. Now, how this money is managed, of course, is where the corruption starts. That is something that has not been monitored. So they would want it to be kind of, unaccountable to, and a large scale kind of money coming in, and then you can say, okay, he took some. It's for that, basically, that they do not want anything to be very highly localized and highly unitized.
Varghese, what you're saying is that it has been happening forever.
It's the flooding,
because there are so many natural,
waterlogging in Bengaluru has started from or reportedly started in the way it has started from 2000 onwards. I mean, 2001 onwards, you can see several cases in which there have been waterlogging being reported from several areas. And first, it was reported in areas where lakes were taken over by real estate sharks or land sharks. And that is where the flooding used to happen.
Like what you're saying and what also Dhananjay said, we are not here to apportion politicians because they only echo each other. Let's listen to the newly minted Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Siddaramaiah.
ಇವರು ವಿಜಯವಾಡದವರು ಗಾಡಿನ ಬಾಡಿಗೆಗೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ನಗರ ನೋಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ವಿಜಯವಾಡ, ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡಿಂಗ್ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ ಸೇರಿ 7 ಜನ ಇದ್ರು. ಅವರು ಬ್ಯಾರಿಕೇಡ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರು, ಅದು ಮಳೆ ಬಂದು ಬ್ಯಾರಿಕೇಡ್ ಬಿದ್ದೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಇವನು ಡ್ರೈವರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಅಂಡರ್ ಪಾಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗದೇ ಇರಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಅಂಡರ್ ಪಾಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾನೆ, ಗ್ಲಾಸ್ವರೆಗೂ ನೀರು ತುಂಬ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ ಕಾರ್ಗೆ. ಅಂಡರ್ ಪಾಸ್ಗೆ ಹೋದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಬಾಗಿಲುಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ವಾಟರ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಗಿಲು ತೆಗಿಯೋಕ್ಕೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಒಬ್ಬಳು ಭಾನು ರೇಖಾ ಅನ್ನೋಳು, ಅವಳು ನೀರು ಕುಡಿದು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾಳೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ. ಅವಳು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಸ್ಪತ್ರೆ ತಗೊಬಂದಾಗ ಮೊದಲು ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ECG ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕನ್ಫರ್ಮೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸಾರಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಬಂದಾಗಲೇ ಸತ್ತೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರು ವಿಜಯವಾಡದವರು.
With due respects to Mr. Siddaramaiah, I know that he is only maybe 48 hours old, but the point is not to put the blame on the driver. Why did he go there? I mean, for people who understand a bit of Kannada, that's what he was saying, wasn't he? That why did the driver go through that underpass, KR underpass, which of course which was actually, if you look at it, the reason for Bhanu Rekha's death. But the point is, look at the statistics, Bengaluru leads the country in deaths due to negligence by civic authorities. According to NCRB, it topped the chart in 2019 and 20, 30 such incidents and 31 deaths, but this data could be more. Let me go to Sandeep Aniruddhan. Sandeep, tell me something. I asked everyone what is the reason. You've heard the newly minted Chief Minister as well. But don't you think there comes a time, which may come rarely, of course, to quote the first Prime Minister of this country in history, but the point is, where does the buck stop? Because I see one of the biggest reasons is that there are no convictions, or there are hardly, like 1 or 2 maximum convictions. So there is no fear of God, as it were, Sandeep Aniruddhan.
You're right, Usha. See, if you really want to analyze how this problem happened, see, this accident has taken place in an underpass. Now, underpass basically is at a lower level than the neighboring land area. Therefore, it's basically creating a collection of water, which means it should also have a mechanism to drain out water either by a pump or some other way. And since there was a warning, there was a storm warning, meteorological department said there is going to be heavy storms, then the civic administration should have taken preventive measures.
So was there a draining out done? Sandeep, you live there. Did someone arrive with all the equipment or none?
No, I live in Whitefield, which is very far away. But what I'm saying is, civic administration should have the wherewithal. One, to prepare for a disaster like this. There was a meteorological warning that there is going to be a storm. The local area engineer of BBMP should have taken precautions. Yes, it's going to flood over there. We should keep motors handy. Was it done? No. So therefore, if you ask me where the buck should start, it should start there. The local engineer should have taken precaution. Second, the traffic police could have cordoned off that road. It could have put barricades and stopped access to that place if there was flooding. Did they do it? No. So they are also responsible. Thirdly, it goes back to planning. Does that underpass fulfill any function? If you ask me, if you audit it, the underpass will not solve any problem. Then you have to go into why it was constructed. In fact, if you analyze all flyovers and underpasses, they don't fulfill any function. They basically don't solve the problem of traffic congestion. They basically just shift the congestion from one point to another, so it doesn't really
You,
solve
you,
any problem. So
you
why
are
did it
raising
get
very
constructed?
basic questions now,
Yeah.
and of course that
So
has to do with planning, you know.
correct. Now, why did it get constructed? I'll tell you why. Because there is no planning authority in Bengaluru. How do these get planned? The BBMP, which is not a planning authority, has a collusion with consultants and contractors. So for them, this is low-hanging fruit. Just announce one project, one small underpass here, one small flyover here, one bridge over there, and because they don't have any oversight, they get these passed until citizens start protesting. That's what happened at Sankey Road recently. Citizens realize they have done one of these scams again. They want to build one flyover over there.
Right.
Some people will benefit. There'll be some
Right.
briefcases changing
All
hands.
right.
This is how projects happen in Bengaluru. They don't have a scientific basis. They don't have an engineering analysis. They don't have environment impact assessment. Nothing is done. All the laws are violated.
Right.
And
So, yeah. So
this is
let me
where the
come back
problem
to,
lies
yeah,
in
I'll come
Bengaluru.
back to you. I'll come back to you. The question that we are asking today, ladies and gentlemen, is what killed Bhanu Rekha? Not who, not why, but what killed Bhanu Rekha? And you heard so many voices. I want you to see that visual of that car, you know, drowned. It's gone underwater, like Varghese was saying. Did you see when it's at the, there it is. No, Varghese,
Yes,
this
it
is
is.
what you meant. Look at it, you know, and I'm going to keep quiet for some time. I think the visuals speak more than my words ever will. Imagine 22-year-old Bhanu Rekha, a techie whose family was traveling from Vijayawada to Hyderabad and from Hyderabad to Bengaluru for sightseeing, that their sightseeing journey would turn into such a nightmare that they shall forever never be able to forget this day. Rain and hailstorm. A lot of people celebrate it. It's a happy thing, you know, particularly in the subcontinent when the rains arrive. But for some, it could be a killer. In Bhanu Rekha's case, it was indeed a killer. Incessant rains, waterlogged roads in Bengaluru, hailstorm. Look at that. I mean, how do you, Bhanu Rekha, poor thing, got caught in this hailstorm and rain. I'm going back to senior advocate K.V. Dhananjay. Dhananjay, you know, I want to ask you something, and my mind, I mean, I do not know, I'm not a civic authority, but I'm just asking you something, that if we lose Bhanu Rekhas like this, what about the conviction rate? Where does one go to file a case? Where does one look for justice, Dhananjay?
Well, justice is always available. In this very case, if Banu Rekha's family wants to send out a message to the delinquent, they could in fact, hire a lawyer and then work out their way through different courts. But the problem is the courts don't do a good job. If it's a corruption case, unfortunately, we talk a lot about the honorable prime minister, but he went out and then made the corruption law, more difficult to enforce. There is an amendment in 2018 to the Prevention of Corruption difficult for private persons to institute complaints without prior sanction and all that, and then for police to carry out investigation without sanction and all that. So it's possible the doors of the courts are always open, but then the victim's family will have to wage a war here for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's beyond the means of most people in this country. So I would not advise anything even remotely to that extent. Of course, they've gone ahead and then complained to the police, and they should pursue that through a lawyer. But then, nobody can fight relentlessly for these issues. Now, coming back to the other aspects, road laying is one of the simplest things that modern societies do. And the fact that in road laying we fail miserably speaks to how bad we are as a society as well. As much as we all have gathered here to discuss it, it's entirely possible that a large chunk of Bangalore just doesn't care, unless and until it's their own family member that ends up on a street and then dies in this way. And then coming back to what the Honorable Chief Minister said, I'm a lawyer, and we have to traverse that part of Bangalore almost every day. I can tell you, we would have done the same thing the driver in this case did. If the roads all flooded and we don't know, which one is safer, when we see this, underpass, we certainly would have taken this underpass. And the chief minister spoke as if the driver, in fact, has had to, should have had some kind of sixth sense to avoid it. That's the
Dhananjay.
reason why I said in the very beginning that the
Yeah.
chief minister had no business to even go there. That's
Yeah.
real. I mean, he makes it look like something else could have been done to avoid this tragedy or disaster on the part of the victim or the victim's family. I don't think anything, and it only intensifies their pain. You see, the possibility that things could have been different and they could have done something else. That's only going to create more misery for them. And I want to confidently state this. I or my driver or any of my colleagues would have done exactly the same thing that the driver in this
You
case did.
nailed it.
We would
You
have taken
nailed it, Dhananjay. I think that's the whole. You just, snatch the mask off all these politicians who go there, and say words which may be very impressive to their cadre, but to people like you and also Varghese who grew up in Bengaluru, I'm going to ask him this. What Dhananjay says. That was the only route.
Well, I think he was right, because if I'm a commuter in Bengaluru, I'm not going to expect water in an underpass that will go over the roof of my car. I'm not going to expect. I would understand that it will probably be up to the level of my, as much as the car's the exhaust pipe is there. But I wouldn't expect it to be on the roof of my this thing. And probably that is what any driver would do, because he's not expecting something that in the middle of the city. Nobody is expecting something like that in the city. And then to say you should have thought about it, you should have, you are in a city that is working, whether it is rain or this thing. After Mumbai, Bengaluru is a very active city. You have to reach from point 1 to A, whether it is rain, storm, whatever it is. So you might be a little slow, but you have to reach.
But Varghese, I go to Bangalore very often. The point is, rains, it's a nightmare. But when there is no rains, if I have to go something which is 15 minutes away, I'm stuck for 40 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating. So the city which was built for 5 people now is housing 50 people, and I think one of the problem is that, and violation of all rules, and then this kind of brazen building. Every day you see buildings being raised to the ground and new buildings coming up. So there is no planning. The urban planners are sitting there. You just have to win elections year after year, Varghese.
And that's the irony of it. There are 28 assembly seats in this city. 28 assembly. If Bengalurians want their voice to be heard, they can actually make it be heard.
But
in
maybe
the
not. I'm going to stick my neck out, Varghese Abraham. And my apologies, Katyayani, my apologies to you, to Dhananjay, and also to Sandeep Aniruddhan. The way they did not come out and vote, that shows they do not care. They just do not care. I don't think people who live in Bengaluru care. And I hope to God that there are no more any Banu Rekhas. We can only pay tribute, perhaps do lip service, many people will think, but I think someone needs to take the blame for Banu Rekha's death. Thank you all for joining us.